Thanks, Matt. All right, we are going to get started. Sorry for starting late. You sure you want to sit, Jake?
I would like to. I mean, I could stand. I could stand. I'll stand.
I'm going to sit.
Okay.
I'm going to do a little intro thing, and then we're going to get started with our poets. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Happy Mother's Day. This is the kind of opening event for Slow World Press, and just kind of a celebration of summer and the end of term. Yeah. Slow World Press is something that kind of came into fruition several semesters ago. My roommate and friend Sarah Falkman and I became interested in publishing in a workshop with Matthias Felina, who is here tonight. One of the big influences in our poetry as a writer and also as a teacher. And for that class, we were instructed to create chapbooks, which at the time we didn't really know what they were, but since then we've kind of figured it out and developed our own theories around it, and it's been a lot of fun. But Slow World has become recently my honors thesis project for the English department, and basically what I'm doing is finding manuscripts that I really enjoy, and just so happens that there are incredible manuscripts kind of running through the undergraduate scene here, and I just kind of got excited about a lot of them, and a lot of people got on board really quickly, and so in the last month, Slow World has really exploded, not only as an idea, but an actual sort of enterprise. Let's see, where to start. There's a little bit of theory behind chapbooking that I don't really need to go into, but one of the main sort of instigators in Slow World was a reading by Matvey Yankelevich, who is the founder of Ugly Duckling Press out of Brooklyn. And he recently read and did a little spiel on the chapbooks in the 21st century, I think it was the name of his speech. And after that reading, I just got really excited about Slow World again and took it on as my honors thesis project. And since then, things have just been kind of a whirlwind. I'm going to read off our 12 manuscripts that are kind of on deck. 3 of them are somewhat completed and finalized. We have 10 of each, I believe, except for mine, because we ran out of paper, which is why I'm reading from cardstock. We ran out of regular paper and ink, which I'll get to later. The books include Futility by myself. I have to write something for an honors thesis, and so I had to write something. Pulchritude by Sophia Laguna, who we'll be reading later. The Antecedent by Jake Malpoker, who we'll also be reading later. And those 3 are the first 3 manuscripts that we published, and they're all over there on the counter. And we're going to sell them for $10 to pay for, printing costs. A newly named project with Matt and Peyton, Matt Stark, who we'll be reading later, and Peyton Prater, who will also be reading later, called The Smallest Thing to Recover. 1,000 Deaths of Matt Beard by Matt Beard himself, who is sitting in the front over here, which we're very excited about. One of the manuscripts that is posing the most difficulty, if you can imagine. Chapbook is traditionally 20 to 60 pages long. Matt's project is 343 pages long, I think. And it's going to be interesting. So you can see where the printing costs come in. And then a slew of other projects by poets in the area: A.J. Carrillo, Aaron Greenhalgh, Stephen Mirabito, Taylor Elnicki, a hybrid CD chapbook by Megan Gomes, some stories, a book of stories, a book of fiction by Bailey Jefferson, who's in the back, and an untitled manuscript to be coming from Sarah Falkman, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight because she's in New Zealand having a blast. So I will get off the mic. Like I said, $10 for the books right now. There's a meager maybe 25 over there. So if you don't get a book and you want a book, there's a sign-up list. Put your address, put your name, and I think the name of the recipient. And we'll send you the manuscript that you are interested in, or we can send you all three. So yeah, be sure to put your information down on that. And also, yeah, we have got cards. Contact us. I keep saying us. It's really kind of me and my authors, but the authors are really involved. They're more involved, I think, than probably me. And my computer and my printer are more involved than me as well. Yeah, so I'll stop. First, tonight we're going to have Jake Malpoker. I met Jake in a poetry workshop this semester with Colin Schuster, and it was really a pleasure to get to know him. You know, as you kind of move through the undergrad, you kind of lose faith in your younger peers. Slowly, you just wait for them to grow up, and Jake kind of stuck out right away as a young poet who had a lot of potential. Not saying that I'm a judge of that, or any of my friends are judges of that as older students, but Jake stuck his neck out and basically said, you know, I want to do this. And a lot of us paid attention to him, including, you know, graduates and other published poets. So it's been really good to get to know Jake, and his chapbook, which we recently published, is called The Antecedent. The theory behind it is interesting. It's a little bit in conversation with, but also an inspired by piece by Cormac McCarthy. And I don't know how many Cormac McCarthy novels you read, but I imagine a lot.
Yeah.
So, and multiple times. So, without further ado, Jake Malpoker.
So, like Kevin was saying, this is sort of in conversation and inspired by the Border trilogy that Cormac McCarthy wrote, which consists of, is it not my name? Am I not my name? Okay. Which, you know, kind of, the Border trilogy, I believe, is, All the Pretty Horses, Blood Meridian, or The Evening Redness in the West, and then the final one, which is No Country for Old Men. And this book has been inspired by Cormac McCarthy, and the epigraph, I'm just going to read it real fast. Everything uncoupled from its shoring, unsupported in the ashen air, sustained by a breath, trembling and brief. If only my heart were a stone. That comes from Cormac McCarthy's The Road. And so I'm just going to jump into the very first poem in the book. It's called Or the Evening Redness in the West. These inconsistent phenomena are the rickety cricket blues that flows down from the tip-topping brown shoes amidst the sparkle of a golden dollar and the light of a dying star. A dusty window and a voice down the street singing underneath the street lamp. Dead ahead lies oblivion in Blood Meridian and the dirty water courses for all the pretty horses. So that's the poem that I kind of really liked that started off the book. And then there was another thing that I really liked the idea of, and it was this sort of, this ambiguous antecedent throughout the book. And so throughout the book there are these poems that just begin with I want to, and then a verb, and then it. And so I'm just going to read the very first one, and then I'm just going to jump into the rest of the poems throughout. So for the rest of the reading. Sorry. This one's I Want to Bury It. Take it behind some blanched church deep in the heart of the Southwest, where the wind whistles through the shrubs, phantasmic solace in a remote quiet. They changed the name from Blood Gulch to Coagulate, and now all that comes to mind is getting smacked in the face by heavier-than-water red raindrops and slipping down the hill in the thicket to a still, lurid puddle away. I want to capture it, wrestle it to the ground over and over until bruises sprout from my body and it can no longer pipe up, spouting undesired thing from its mouth. I want to asphyxiate it, cram a knife down its throat, wrap my hands around its strained neck, like blood on top of powdery dirt, the hidden particles that can't even scream. This one is called Pulling Away from East Custer Drive, and it's for a friend of mine named Jessica. I start to notice how the glow from the dash is red when it used to be green, and how childhood stinks like just another empty milk bottle on the front porch, when goofing off is all that you can remember, masked by the embrace of a cool March's night. I want to know it. Let it wash over me again and again, a surf of knowledge, the tidal barrage filling my lungs to the tippy tip top, pressuring the alveoli. I want to pleasure it, dripping from my mouth, the violent, visceral ramblings of Will Alexander. Find that pressure point rubbing on circular patterns over and over so it begins to bubble, and finally it erupts, flowing over, all over, scorching nerves at every ending. I want to dress it, slap on a garter and some VS lingerie and set it down Colfax or Federal, whoring for attention, because arbitrary sexual attention is better than none at all. It can ink a single straight line, and all you can see is that. Stuck your thumb on the line and drug it like a body over the whiteness. This one's called Versions, Visions, and Vendettas. Versions. Different versions of yourself have always been extant, alive, in the vile belly of your beast, a knife in the dark, shining. Visions. Rolling hills and the green plains, an obsession with the mountains, and their precipitate heavy, like me and then nothing. Vendettas. Gargoyles don't see in color, or they choose not to, yet watch the artist as he paints his victim with the sleek handle of a knife. I want to animate it. I want to animate it. True Steamboat Willie, then change its name for money. This one's Blue Jays. I don't let the Blue Jays see in through my window, and the expulsion locks them, me, behind a cupboard door. Because being behind a cupboard door is better than being behind a window, unless you're a Blue Jay. I want to conceptualize it. Pull it from my lungs. Let it burn in the air. It's a fiery image alit on the wind, and it burns like a bruise. I want to educate it. Erase ignorance with the flash of Apollo's chariot of the sun, ordinary in nothing but appearance, as appearances aren't true mirrors, as Apollo is not the opposite of Artemis, as the lit yellow moon is not its own source. The opposite of ignorance is not knowledge. I want to unknow it. Take it out back. Let a deluge of gasoline take and spark to full flame. A lot of the poems in this book, they don't have titles, and so they seem like they're just attached to the next poem. But usually they don't. There's a pause, and then I don't say the title of the next poem because there isn't a title. So, like this one. So, yeah. I took my boots down to the river, I sat on a rock and dipped my feet in the water, and my boots filled up with sand. Drowning in the air, a butterfly landed on my shoulder. This poem, Midnight in Prayers, I had a friend of mine pass away last semester up at Fort Lewis College. He killed himself, and I don't really understand that whole how someone can be so tortured in themselves. And it's not dedicated to him in the book, but this poem, Midnight in Prayers, it's for Scott. And so, yeah. Midnight in Prayers. Somewhere, the death bells toll incessantly, and I lie awake in the fluorescent hue of the dark, waiting for the light to turn on, so that the death bells stop, and I listen to the morning. Of gravitational pull, of concussions of feather pillows, of longing for the stars, I am drawn, a goose to the south, in the black of the clouds of the Fugass fireworks, and bursting with color. Lost in a Harley-Davidson, in a field of baked barley and a pile of leather, covered in bones, down in ink. I am a moving 8-bit figure, multicultural swirl beads vacuumed to the left side of a circular candle in the creaky old manor on the mountain court, down in ink, down to the very last drop. There was a picture on the wall right back there a few weeks ago, and it was a picture of a wolf that was laying down in the snow and everything. And so this next poem is called The Sidewolf, and it's from that picture. I don't know where it went. Maybe someone bought it, or I guess Brian just decided to change the art. But yeah, it's a really cool picture, so I wrote a poem about it. We were doing this thing in Colin's class. He really liked the idea of ekphrastic writing, which, you know, it's a writing through pictures or through other mediums. In case you don't know what that is, for people who don't read a lot of poetry, I guess. But yeah, so this is the Sidewolf. The Sidewolf, so bent upon choosing a side, like on the greener blind of a rotten, fallen tree, the Sidewolf lays across the ground, parallel with the tree. I think when we're younger, we have a tendency to write angsty poems. Just as a general rule, when you're younger, I guess when you first enter college, because this past year was my freshman year, so there's a couple of things that, you know, like freedom and you know, rebelling against the man, I guess. whatever you guys with some angst up to. But this one's, the title's so angsty too. It's called Seeking Independence Under the Night. I know, it sounds like you're driving when it's a rainstorm and you're just like, ugh, angst. But yeah, no, this is one of the more angsty poems in the book. Seeking Independence Under the Night. I walked down Regent Drive, and the stale pond water left the atmosphere. In the night, the stars hid behind the chandeliers of the city, singing dirges without being heard. I looked back to the past, hoping to find liberation, only to see a cage in front of me. Pretty angsty. Colin also really liked the idea of a pantune. We wrote a lot of pantunes this semester in Colin's class, and so one of them With every Pantoum, it's like you write 50 of them, and then maybe one of them comes out good.
That's passion.
Well, okay, so a Pantoum is it's a poem built off quatrains, where you take the first and third line of the first stanza and you put them into or it's the second and fourth line or something.
The second and fourth repeat is the first and the third and the next stanza.
Yeah, so that's what's up. But yeah, so it's a poem. It's a poem built on repetition. So this one's called "Watching in the Darkness and Waiting for the Thought Fox." Through living roots, I awaken in my head. I sit in the shadow of the thought fox, searching for ancestry under pith and peat. I see my worth, substance from my seat. I sit in the shadow of the thought fox, leaving its cool hardness in my hand. I see my worth, substance from my seat. In the scorching inferno, I wish to entreat. Loving its cool hardness in my hand, forcing power and wattage from my forearm. In the scorching inferno, I wish to entreat. The moldy, dank stench of defeat. Forcing power and wattage from my forearm. In the light of an ordinary sun, the moldy, dank stench of defeat, the old cracked leather on this dank seat. I want to simplify it. Reduce it once, reduce it twice. It reads from top to bottom. Let the curvature resemble a calligraphic equation rolling inside darkness and the smell of earth. The chimera rolls to life in the blank. I want to silence it. Sit on a bridge and dangle over the battalions of air and watch it float down to earth. This one's called Books, although the title's not in the book for some reason, but it's a poem called Books. Yeah. I mean, it works either way. So, the title is kind of implied. You'll see why after a second. So, but yeah. The books are heated. The books radiate heat. The books are a pool of fire. The books are a holocaust. We lit the books on fire with our angry eyes. The books have weird fonts. The books don't have covers. The books aren't books at all. The books are books. We decided what was poetry, bleeding from the mouth of phrasemongers. The books read us. The books waited for us. The books cherished us. The books defended us, but did not want, in turn, to be defended themselves. The books deflated. The books cried. The books tried. The books moved on. Kept on being books, waiting to be read. Alright. So this is the last one. I really enjoy this poem a lot. It's called Upon Seeing a Portrait in a Gloomy Foyer. A picture like that is a bayonet to the stomach, a knife dipped in poison. The damage is, and always was, done in blood oozing from the split vein, pumping yourself out, every crack in the tile filling with it. It gets in and melts you, boils your substance to a salt. A hyperacute reactionary, a liquefying apocalypse for your organs. The radiation bubbles off piece by piece, social acid tearing away. Seeing your bone devoid of color, you begin to crumple. It is malignant rot, sinew ground into fine powder. The sun bleached what you were, and the snow covered it up. That's it. So it is my pleasure to introduce our next poet. She's a really good friend of mine, and I met her this year in Colin's class along with Kevin. But she has been one of the goofiest I could say, and most awkward koala friends that I could ever ask for. So, without further ado, Sophia Laguna.
Good? Okay. So, pulchritude. I'm all about contradictions, and pulchritude is probably one of the ugliest words I've ever heard, but it actually means beauty. So that's kind of what my book is about. It's about like a beautiful ugliness, and I just write into that a lot. So I'm just gonna go for it. And also, feel free to laugh. Like, I know that all of it sounds really sad, and it is kind of sad, but it's okay if you laugh. So I'm inviting you all to laugh at my misery. Just kidding. It's not my misery. Okay, Jane Eyre. The house condenses out of the tendency to wrinkle my youth with phantom hands. I insist everything has everything exceeding all good sense. This is what they say, and this is what they owe it. That is because blue eye shutters lid at dark. I worry. The predicted is no longer now. Knees are to be covered by tablecloth. This is to say, this place is any other. But this time I see, resting in the pages, is a sketch of dreams. A man walking his pet whale. A shadow at moonlight, just a shadow casting chalk. Ground chalk under white palm. Always wear gloves to practice safe touching. An implication of some kind of vividness. I remember all of Europe, all of which taints paper blue, then pink, then black, then black. I think of painting burning black, seeping through, and through the oil paint slips. In the shade of projected darkness, there are ribbed circles spreading like oil, diffusing in the lightness of water, treading through the quotable horizon. Those are just white lines in the reflection of the sunset on the table next to the water, serving up drinks for slower movement. It is disturbing to watch the speed of images sometimes. Slow movement pushes against the draw of my own rotation. I remember all of Europe. Similarly disturbing, disquiet waves ripple. They are unreasonably sympathetic. Word open up. I am injured lungs, speaking nonsense. It is too simple a consequence from aligning to parallel shoes at the door. I keep you, nauseated horizon, in the glove box. This is now when I start thinking in bruises. Sometimes it hurts more than it should. This one's just going to sound awfully angsty. It is, but it's called passive masochistic. With every day, I become more diluted. I realize humanness is no excuse. Fingers always smell of the usual vices, don't they? My, how the weather softens me. And this is the poem for like the title of the book, so it's called Pulchritude. And it starts out with a quote by Pablo Neruda, so I'll read it in Spanish and I'll translate it for everyone who doesn't speak Spanish. Me gustas cuando callas porque estás como ausente, distante y dolorosa como si hubieras muerto. So that means, I like it when you are silent because you are like absent, distant and painful as if you had died. So that's I like watching you sleep because you look like a kite stuck in a tree. You blow, the boughs bend, and your eyes bend shut. Wilting cluster of petals on a dashboard. You lie somewhere where I can't see. Sometimes I think, I realize, it is the silence I like that your absence creates. Plasma. Today, like every day, it feels touched by the ingrown fingerprints of pinched glitter bursts. Tonight, I rub the skull cap and ask we turn off the moonlight for better mapping, to abandon the particular blackness, to satisfy the night with vacant air. December Sevillana. When I imagine the round snow drowning the afternoon, I submit to the blackness where all things are to solve themselves. I ask permission to open the flesh of ash and reopen to provoke a new sense of knowingness. I can teach you what it is to be uncertain, outside of certainty, outside of myself. I can teach you how to be whole-made of smaller pieces. And yeah, a lot of these are very angsty. I'll just get into it now. So this one's really blatant. Hello, anxiety. The sun alone erases leaves from clouds. The clarity of the night plays in my palms, while I imagine his heart inhabiting the corners of this house. The habit is bottomless, anchored in the anguish of certain hours. The drill of life is a copy of life we do not call our own. A piece of me. Today, I hope to be unapproachable. I survive off the silence. There are words left in somber rooms. What color is the ocean today? Predicting glimmers extracted from silence, coloring the overseen light. But the truth is, the feeling is painted and then unpainted, even though I'm unsure. I try to look at things closer, then look at the same again. I know I'm the artist. I know the moon rises before the evening. Natural philosophy. Arrogated in my own ideas, I do not feel you, because I am distant. I cannot throw out within, where my heart foams. It also buds dew, it soaks in and releases. I cannot throw out within and carry my heart and carry it without structure. New stories bud in vanity. They nervously sweat. They kneel before things of ash and reflecting things, and sometimes further out of things that can no longer procrastinate being. So I started getting really creative about the title, so this is another kind of funny title. Knitting a blue sweater called Silence. Serendipity disposes threads from the loom. They contrive blue knots. They look at me. Those circular circles, they claudate the afternoon. Light cracks the door, sizing down to moments. Ocean measured in swims, sky measured in storms. The determined is perched on my palm. Soledad. And Soledad is actually the name of my great-grandmother, but it also means solitude and sunshine in Spanish. I always think that's really beautiful. So what does the sun hold? A lighter loneliness. I wish I could hide in a bookshelf until I found the word for so ugly it's beautiful. Okay. You as a tree when you are neither a tree nor a bird. Sometimes I get all protective like, all overbearing and overburdening the nesty messes that are not mine to own. I know you as stoic, as tree-like, as for me, as for what I want to be for you. I see miscalculation. There are too many twigs, too many birds in stubborn flight. Sometimes I don't want to see you, always as a tree. Sometimes birds don't understand. They don't see the branches they stand on. Yeah, these ones get kind of sad, but that's okay. We'll just bear with me. Fool's Day. This is the fear of your disappearance, of how the sun hibernates and the spring blooms you. It is the trauma of touching my buffalo bone heart to the naked clouds. You are the burnt orange ladybug on my judgment finger. This is 12 days before we become too old to joke like that. We count off numbers like 15, 14, 7. We count the blades of grass that hold the imprint of your bare foot. 3 years. The cancer makes me sad. It reminds me I need to be capable again, trust holding hands with, have faith in dancing again. I try to breathe yet again. I will learn to breathe responsibly. Anti-regnum. This is smooth and brilliant in my retina. Papa, call me Reina until I lost my crown. I like to think something replaced it, a spool of leaves, sewn in petals, arriving at some kind of purity. And this one's really goofy, but it's called There's an Elephant in My Shower. I have this sadness condition, a vermilion color of carnal shame. I continue to wonder what color the sky is today. No matter, it's the ocean's fault. Shame on the ocean's waves, a translated place. An understanding between ocean, shower, and sky, and who can claim certain particles of living. I worry for them all. I collect myself an elephant skin in order to feel bigger. I continue to wonder why elephants feel the shower is the safest place for elephants to cry. Wabi sabi. It is a transient mania in the chest cavity, an addiction to panic, a pulsing of imperfection under the skin. Brains are vases that carry the roughest edges. Beauty always emerges from the deepest cracks. For the fox who always wanted to be a bird. Maybe you pretended being in the light of what shaded you. Not outside of it, but being with it, participating in the clear struggle. Being in high cloud, sharing the flight with the swallows, capable of going someplace and returning without having lost anything. Being lifted and existing as the unfilled spaces of wind, of the fall, of the dryness of an unjust time. I see you diluted by the plains that breathe you. Decoupage. The backyard grows an unhappy mess. Invisible notables, like no more, like nothing to the eyelash, I turn to and roll into black. Things fall off me with purpose, paving ways through the earthy carpet. This is a clumsy beauty, stumbling on little leaf epitaphs. Something grows where something else cannot. I am filled with guilt, as in hidden and tucked away in the ugly art of selflessness. How am I doing on time? Like 4 more poems.
A couple more minutes.
For solitude. They say I look like her. White, spring petal eyes, skin 2 weeks thinner, and veins running deep indigo blue rivers. Transparent, I feel blue, tracing circles, transparent inside and out. I fall into the legacy of silence, stammering on disquiet reflection. I like to think there is grace in this stillness. A girl with a pearl earring. I am too aware today, an awakened fluorescence. It is you who reminds me how minding works. Such a beautiful mind, but what a messy soul. This clarity feels occupied by an obscure emptiness. Its fluency evokes a certain lightness in me. I cannot understand the nature of these things. Portraits often change frames without completion. How I imagine spending Sunday in the treehouse that I don't have. Inside the 4 walls of rain, school pencils bloom to a tip and sharpen to lift the lost weight of meaning. Eyes pearl and escape me, and truth enters without permission. In between the shaking branches, I am tender among wet leaves, and I sit to listen. The splashing voice numbs me. And this is the last one. Why are you in Wyoming? This is what panic looks like. It looks like you panic in the middle, where it fills a space you call empty. You have not seen my panic there. It does not go to Wyoming with yours. I tell you to not call, because this is not me panicking. I promise you this panic is not mine. This condition is my own roughening, away from the fields of cows and birds perched on electric wires. This is not the desired feeling. It is the comfort of recognizing it, a familiar place of mind, a space to fill the vastness of April blue skies. Thank you. And up next we have Kevin Kane, who I owe this entire thing to. I would not have applied to the creative writing department if he hadn't forced me to print out poems and he hadn't forced me to turn them in. So I have a lot to owe him, and he also does not give himself enough credit for how much work he puts into these books. So thank you so much. And yeah.
I'm not very good at this microphone thing. I'm going to read from my book. It's called Futility, or Function Utility, or whatever that looks like. This book is really a project more than anything. After the reading at Counterpath, where Matvey Yankelevich read, and talked about chapbooking, it's kind of inspired to complete a project that I had been kind of theorizing around for a while, in which I wrote a book from cover to cover in a single... My idea was to do it in a single day, but I ended up doing it in a single morning, starting at 1 a.m. It was fun. And this is the product of that. I told myself it would be 25 pages long, and I would write the book just kind of as a kind of coming into delirium. I would start with the cover and then write each page. So I wrote dedications before I wrote poems, is basically how it worked. I wrote titles before I wrote poems. And that was really cathartic and also very difficult. But I also did the whole publishing process, which made the publishing process very easy. If any of the publishers in here know, compiling and doing all that is absolutely ridiculous. So I'll read... first I want to read the poem that kind of inspired the writing within Futility. It's a poem by Matvey Yankelevich in his chapbook called Bending at the Elbow, from Minute Books, 2011. It's called AM, and it makes sense because I was writing in the AM, I guess, a little bit. Struggle with the orange juice container, lack of voice to ask for assistance, perception of one's hands, one, then the other, the same, sensation of dryness outside, inside, something like dryness, but swollen, act of imagination involving other possible outcomes, sets of ulterior movements, reevaluation of motives in the act of choice, clarification of moral positions, justification of chance events through assertion of bitter life lessons, biting of lips and dry parts of fingers close to the hard nails, relaxation of muscles, the eyes, cessation of outward gaze, decision to look around, olfactory intake of coffee essence, desire not to repeat a move, desire to leave the closed system. That's just a bit of that poem. It's a long poem. And these are really short. The book is dedicated to Sarah, my best friend and my kind of muse. And unfortunately she's not here, but we're recording for her. And the epigraph is from that poem, AM. The first poem is called Stint. A skyscraper spills over the tip, lands in a Midwest cornfield. The corn lay their heads low still about the sudden swooping draft of 100,000 shards of glass and shrapnel thrown out ahead of a skyscraper falling. Okay, says the corn, just that. Okay is all the corn ever says, really. At one point, the field was used as a landing strip for crop dusters, small single-engine Cessnas, and Grumman Agcats. Back then, airplanes fell into cornfields in all kinds of ways. That's not really all that true anymore. That was my attempt to narrate, and then the rest of the poems aren't anything like that, so more my style. Brackage. Windows of windows, and through windows, she, to the and, a mother, painted on photoglossy paper in all this static I. A window painted black above the church wished to paint away the cloud's anesthetic and corollary. A cloud held bleeding, shattered, and still, with the ocean beneath, Us through windows, trees through windows, the sky through windows, Mercury windows, the ocean beneath the windows, and a small light there, too, on the topography. That which we know, the thief, windows. Are scratched, are molten, are sandpaper, laughter, and visional doubt. Between each cell is a space for which we do not give a name. We call it blackness, we call it blankness. We think of it as the shadow of the cell. Figuration. You are waiting for an image. You are the fingerprint of an image. You are the image's fingerprint when the sun is leaking in. Forest, left and right. The shadow of each tree breathing, the shadow of each flash of each tree breathing, its each own coagulated breath by sunlight, asphyxiated by marrow, and this and that are sap. So, as I'm reading through, it's kind of easy to tell that I start to lose it over the course of the night, just to sleep and also to everything else that comes with sleep. Rawness, I guess. And you'll start to notice that I think I'm really funny at points. It was bad. Whose level? Dictation of a body is a persuasion rather than a percussion. To move from the north requires a knowledge of the further north. Transparent degree, does it have enough longevity? What is the organ of touch that splinters? Must myself shudder back see a place of a bilingual merge and song? It is a mixture of those things, surfaces, distinction, and a recognition of darkness. The emanition, rather, that's the gathering. It is of contamination, its envy all-encompassing and precise like time. To what extent can we trust our plant doubles? We respect the sky, the fog that dampens us, the nature that processes us, like obsession. We are glistening with what every day evokes. And one last thing. I do not see a tear, I see a horizon. All I have are words. See, I thought that was funny.
It's very sad.
I was kind of just laughing at myself often, which is an important exercise. The very unimaginary. I don't know to whom each word refers or whether they are actually there. No doubt is intact and the world cares about you. The air can still hurt. I don't like having pain explained to me. I can't stand the sun sometimes. Are you a man in a uniform? What's it like to be disguised as a skyscraper? How beautiful and inappropriate you are. Unfold riotous closeness. The city I want to read about is not the city, is not the body I want to write about. What it's actually like to circulate is always an impression of that, an outskirt, something about diaspora. Over and over miserable. These are angsty poems. What is this? Hayden and Matt are going to save us from the angst. Over and over miserable. A stone in my eye's place. It holds circles of my effort. Cue laughter. Inappropriate laughter. I'm surprised that I can say it with feeling. I don't blame you for being dad, but thanks for calling it a happy ending. A space to unimagine it sure as hell as you're singing that song I hate, come, question, reloop, relapse. The eye pulls down to horizon's level, we shrink in our world together. So now I should skip some. I'll get to the more funny parts. I know this one kind of love where all you see of the other person are blurry magnifications of their body parts, noses, kneecaps, armpits, all blurred and undefined, especially the eyes. The eyes are always so dull blue, and no one can really say where the eyelashes are. When you talk, it's hard to find the person's mouth to look at, especially if they're a very gestural person. Everything is moving, and it can be difficult to decide what a mouth is. After a while, things become normal enough to forget about the lost details. You can get used to just about anything if you give it enough time and drink your fair share of water.
That's about me.
I wrote this above Bailey's head. In fact, this is the book dedicated to Bailey. It says, this book was written above your head. To Bailey. She was sleeping.
Above my head while I snore loudly.
I'm surprised I don't have any snores in here. Today, huge and strange, say soundlessness shrugs off raw distortions of the squarest square. Plains that fall through fields of air, sky as an open hand that could take, feeling the dedicated breeze, answering doubt. I held on to it. I hid the blankness inside my throat. That poem is dedicated to Nils Michaels. He's a professor here, kind of a guest professor. And he had a reading recently where he addressed 9/11. And I think that's something that's been trying to come through my poems lately. My dad's a pilot, and he was flying on September 11th. And it's something that I didn't realize was there in my head, but I think it has been trying to kind of come out. And Nils, as a poet, kind of led me into that and gave me permission to write about something that was unwritable and so far beyond me. So that's to him. The next poem is called I'll Quit on You Too. It says, look at the gulf, shadow again, the within air, mind of air. We are a large herd of birds holding on to only, ridiculously curved, thin windows, absurd like a beach, absurd like light, breasts, sand in your hair. The side room is certain was just a far-off star, sunbird flowers on another shoulder, butter of no real trees. Say, a shed of nails. Say, an untouched, pinkened carpet. I always tell myself I'm not going to read this one. because it's just awful. But it's one of those poems where I was at 3 a.m. just cracking up at myself, and I feel like it's important to embrace how awful it is. I'm not going to read the whole thing, as you'll see. A particular madness between us. It is a forest of machines. 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 I think there's 28 of those or something. That was really funny. At 3 a.m. Klein. The refuge whale access lake, where is my house? Cocked, cool, earth, a cave inside another cave, so that no one can reach it. Lake windows that I cannot see myself in, inside spoons like a fucking cliff, a fucking shiny cliff. Today is so choppy. Who's digging inside the earth and miraculously keeps staying there? Who's made any sea lately? There's a couple more. I was asked to kind of make a link between the title of this poem and this poem recently, and I couldn't do it. It's called Postcard Fuck. And it has nothing to do with the poem I'm about to read. Every day, wrists held and whatever, uncontrollable red night, every way about the lattice. A face of a window wears itself in, wants from itself some sense of gleam. What anchors us is what the sun wavers, a wickedness warbling, so in the snow there is no refutable notion of where gravity went. Line break problems in there. Yeah, these are the last two. Indelible. Woke up on a subway to what was a repetitive drone noise that shouldn't have been there without any wind. Subway cars disturb airfields, but they make wind. They do not make wind. It's supposed to say that. They are not perturbed by it. And so I started thinking that I should eat something. Yes, then I would calm down. That's the point at which I eat something. Ornamental. Those of you who choose not to write poems, you choose a life in which someday there might be an opportunity to own a yacht, or perhaps a pair of wave runners. Though that life really isn't for me, some might consider it an ultimate actualization. I really don't mind if you buy me pens for Christmas. That's the end of that. Next, we have two incredible poets and two really wonderful people. I guess Matt Stark is who I'll introduce first. Matt is an MFA student at the University of South Carolina, where he is the James Stickey Fellow. That's a big deal. He's humble about it, but it's a very big deal. We're very proud of him as a poet, and just kind of this figure of the progression that we're all kind of on. Hopefully, undergrad, then MFA, and then hopefully, somewhere like these fellows in the back, Mr. Matthias Felina and Oren Silverman and Sarah Marshall. MFA students and real bona fide poets, which is cool. Thanks for coming, by the way. So Matt has kind of just been a huge inspiration and a really great friend through all of that, and his poems are hilarious and serious and kind of everywhere in between. Peyton Prater is a recent graduate, very recent graduate, as in within the last 2 days, of the CU's undergraduate creative writing program. And she had her graduate party last night. And I wanted to save giving her a present last night in the slew of presents that she was getting for tonight from all of us. This Tonight No Poetry Will Serve by Adrian Rich. Rich is a phenomenal force in the poetry world, and she recently passed away. And she's been a huge force in our classes and just in our reading. And so I hope you don't have this book. But Peyton is similarly forceful in her own writing, and she wrote a book called, it was Horse or Horses?
Yes, one.
The chapbook Horse is hilarious. You guys should all see a copy of it. It's bound in leather like a saddle, like a horse. Anyways, so this is for you, Peyton, and they're actually going to do some collaborative poetry, so they're going to come up together.
Well, yeah, you can go. But I was good.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And Peyton is great, as you see. But I'm going to read a few, and then she's going to read a few, both short, and then we have a collaborative thing we've been working on. 4 Mile Fire. The first weeds on your burned belongings poked my head around your soiled future. The outline of a house, home, starts with the entryway. The metal welcome mat must be where the door was. The head of a golf club, the body of a wheelbarrow, the arm of a gun, lacquered flat with ash in the cloudless blue sky. Walk on your foundation, a green onlooker. What if the watering jug melted flat, where the kitchen must have been, the toaster, the shingles, the screws, the dishwasher still full of coffee mugs. When you return with me sitting in your scorched lawn furniture, I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you for having me. This is called Q&A, and I was on, I think, Ask.com or something, asking some question, and I saw the other ridiculous questions, so I decided to answer them. What part of your body is the hardest to get rid of excess fat? Is this all you want from me? I can bring tulips, bring fireworks, can grow food right up out of the ground. How can I help my dog with separation anxiety? Hold your mouth like this and force the air out. Make hums and clicks and drop from the roof of your mouth, from the base of your brain tumbling forth. Hold your mouth, hold your tongue, your language. How do you deal with fake people? There is this poem, perhaps if you search, just eat a bag of seeds. Do men have some sort of gene that makes them deficient in locating trash cans, laundry baskets? Processed food, meaning food that went through a process. These organic sausages appeared in their packaging. How do I figure out how many calories to eat a day? I brought a couple sandwiches to the park. The way I like them is lightly toasted. Progress. In time, all the sounds had ended in each of us. In time, the tunnels at the wall so that I won't. In time, the golden existence. I know it's caricature. I know, and beautiful. In time, grind into bits of metal, the pavement, with its gray tide continuing forward, the curl of paper as it burns, if in time with the matches, the pacing when light flicks on in the room, or doesn't. In time, we all learn something, the right words to say, become experts. Time crickets, the rapid blink of eyelashes. Time orbits, or bits of change falling to the ground. In time, all of it identified, explained. You home in time for dinner, bounding up the front steps to music, lasagna in the oven, the table set for one. The mockingbirds, I imagine them up their terrible trees. I threw a rock and broke some glass. Under the sun I am bringing news, why shouldn't I? The way of it, the hook, yet another who is born, brush in it, and I paint and fear comes in my hand for there to bloom. Singing, I threw a rock to you. By the sea, by the inlet, I am tanning you. Just hold her hand, but with the force of what I see, and that hurts. 2. Goats eat rocks to help digest, and they eat seeds. If there is a seed, it is a still seed. It is a swollen seed, if there is a seed. Through the rusted bars, taste. Pay close attention to unconscious motives, human nature, a myth, and wax that won't melt, fall in there and burns. With this you will become desirable, buried or at least covered, less to belong than as a ragged line along the street. All flowers open to new meaning, at least briefly, a few times, to tour in an hour a city older than trains. A half-dozen lines guide all our choices, a half-dozen lines landscape and project us. All flowers show some disorder and surprise, at least briefly, what is involuntary. And then my last one, before the collaboration, choice for inclusion. A stray line or a fugitive rhythm leaves the book like additions and corrections through multiple stages. Order, a particular order, draws me, new and more intense, lights the field behind the current surrounding, a cramped picture of life. The bird can be left in its cage or let to die in the wild. The bird can eat flightless bugs, can eat bugs that burrow off sheets of acrylic, can drink 4 parts water, 1 part sugar from a shallow dish. The smaller the cage, the easier it is for the bird, especially the larger one, to hear itself chirp. Bird muted in straw, bird in a jewelry box shown to a child, bird bathing in Tupperware. Bird noticed in shifting backgrounds of leaves, like an idea where any single event changed into a bird falls into a group. And then we have Peyton.
So, yeah, I'm just going to read a few of mine from this semester. Last semester I had a class with Kevin and, in the fall, and Matthias was our teacher, and I wrote a lot of poems about horses and put them in a book called Horse. So this semester I was kind of just figuring out like what to write about beyond that. And speaking of horses, we have some bookmarks that Matt and I made for all of you to enjoy. You can donate for them. We like to think they're little works of art, but I was thinking too, if you just love them, you can steal them. We'd love them to be like out there. And they're chapbook bookmarks, so you need to buy a chapbook from Slow World Press in order to use them. Priorities.
Can we steal a chapbook too?
No, you can't steal chapbooks, but if you can steal a bookmark. Priorities. We saw 2 animals today, 1 snake and 1 turtle. 1 on the side of the pavement and 1 on a log in the river. Brooding and beastly, this is not the city. Scales and sun and shell and tongue flicks. We have a procedure for this. We each watch 1. I squeeze your hand to switch. Today, your hat flies off. I feel something brush my feet. You forget which animal to watch. I say, what good's a wet hat when all the animals are gone? It's a lot of pressure to not read angsty poems. I'm like, oh, I don't know. You guys can be the judge. Like an angst meter. The yellow tree by the gas station. The only other natural thing I can think of that is yellow is bananas. For a month, the birds have recurring dreams of fire, of the leaves rattling, of heat becoming, of something frozen by the night. The little boy in the next car over looks confused. The only other natural thing I can think of that is blue is alone. Angst. I grew impatient painting numbers. The wood on the floor was becoming loose, and there was dirt underneath. I left my house. In the new beginning, I built a swing set of branches, having never been lost before. Once I promised to sentence with a reason, Everyone should remember everyone. But I've seen a poem before. It was a sentence, and it was very hungry. What is left when the horses are gone? Things happen in real life. People get funny/cool pets. I accidentally leave a Cheerio and a note on the carpet. There is still furniture in my room. One time we were playing with a little bird and it died so quickly from starving. What is left is the sound of its little beak as it clicked onto the pavement. To rearrange is to wake to the rustle of wood chips, the mouse throwing its tiny body at the glass. There are birds that don't fly away from you. The city promises many things and delivers many things. The bird on the street corner, bursting to red, seeps into gutters. I watch a boy leave his mother, a feather. I am immensely afraid of all things Chicago. I am immensely afraid of looking. I am immensely afraid, most recently, of doorknobs. I am immensely afraid of looking away. To build a streetlight for every boy in the city, a boy for every city. Every feather I see on the ground is another thing to gather. And with that, Matt and I are going to read a collaborative poem that we've been working on. To do this, or not. This is
You?
so. This is called "The Tiniest Thing to Recover," and it will be coming soon from Slow World Press. Start.
All right. He'd push the world across the table, pull it back on a string. The world rumbled, but his mother was in the other room. The boy didn't have to put that away, closer and closer to the edge before pushing it back again from his chest. He never let it fall. The string never broke. The world was no larger than a heart.
The boy thinks his job is very important. He brings the flowers to the yard. He brings the flowers to the funeral. But at night, if he got scared, the boy would shine a flashlight on the world, a blink, 3 times. He fell asleep with the light on. His mother came into his room to make sure he wasn't squashing the world.
A heart is a thing like a fist. The world was such a small thing in his pocket, a fist heart.
He brings flowers to the mother. He brings flowers to plant next to the other flowers in the yard.
One day, the boy noticed the world no longer fit in his pocket. He felt little hairs like trees. He ran his hand over green land, but felt a chill as he brushed across a ridge into a sea.
He carried the world around in his hand, which meant he left it everywhere. His mother, annoyed.
The world was moist with dew. The boy pulled the world from a drawer of his desk, rolled it through the doorframe narrowly. The world rumbled through the front room, the front door, into the sun.
A thin crescent of the world was dark when the sun shone on it, hazy. The boy noticed the shadow crept away.
His mother put things in his backpack, an address, a Band-Aid.
The boy carried the world in his arms. The boy carried the world sometimes in his backpack. If the world ends, he said, I'll fill this backpack with clay. I'll carry the clay on my back.
The boy carried the world through airport security. The man at the scanner didn't stop the boy to look at the world because the world is secure, he said.
Seated, waiting, the boy tossed the world to himself, kicked his legs under the seat. The boy dropped the world. It fell in his lap.
After takeoff, the boy pulled the world from under the seat in front of him. He looked down at the world, arc of green, space open and flat, the great black zippers enclosing it. The world has an albedo of 0.3, the boy explained to the man sitting next to him. But when I zip up this bag, the boy smiled. The man went back to his newspaper. If this plane crashes, the boy thought, gripping the world between his knees.
I'm sorry, the boy said to the flight attendant. You pour the water wrong. You don't pour it wrong, just different.
The water poured around the boy lay rivulets of sand, his body an image of, his body the sand, so that the waves would hit his legs first and come part way up his sides. He held the world above his chest. The weight pushed his body into the sand, an impression, something to read.
The sun turned red, it turned yellow, it turned red, it exploded. Only one boy saw it. It was a small explosion.
But blew the world away from him.
He is a flower bringer. He chooses each for each occasion. One flower, one part of one occasion. Each flower plays a part in each occasion. Occasions of flowers, parts of whole flowers. He brings them and leaves them.
In the end, bits of slow world were strewn about the grass.
In the end, bits of slow world like scraps of paper, like crumbs, like shed skin from the sunburned flakes into the grass.
In the end, the bugs crawled up the stalks of grass and leapt to the pant legs of the marching band. The children held onto the pant legs of the parents. A boy held onto a balloon. When someone forgot their kettle on the stove, when someone heard a whistle above the ruckus, a mother looked for a son in the back of the formation. A boy dropped his trumpet and rummaged in the grass.
He saw the world on the ground rolling. He saw the world small, struggling. He thought about holes and hiding. He held the world in his hand to the sky. His body holds him up like a light shakes him.
Light like a touch to a switch, a spark rolls to a bulb, held up by nothing save a wire to dangle from.
The boy found the world rolled into the grass like a tennis ball, a small thing beating.
The grass stamped in the hustle, flattened. He told himself he'd wait and collect the pinwheels dropping to the ground. He cupped the world in his hand like a mother.
Bright ball of airbrush clouds, lapsing but always forward.
The boy thought he saw lines of drool dropping from a boy's mouth, but it was his mother's hair. His mother behind him, her silvery hair seeming to fall from his mouth.
He collected the pinwheels and took them home, put them in vases around the house.
He gathered the scattered bits and pasted them back on. The fans that dried them started the pinwheels a spinning. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming.